Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Meeting is being recorded. Okay. All right. So thank you. Happy Sunday. I love the Course in Miracles. I have read it quite a few times since finding it in 2017. I left it coincidentally enough in March 2020. I kind of put it aside because I thought I didn't need it for some reason. I mean, I guess nobody technically needs it. And then the pandemic happened, and it felt like our entire universe was like swallowed up by fear, in particular, fear of like scarcity and illness and death in particular. And so, over the last 18 months, I've been pretty fearful and noticed that I think a lot of people are in the same boat. And it just seems like the sort of consciousness that this book is trying to address has been running so rampant that most people find themselves right now in a pretty terrified, unproductive, and yeah, genuinely scary cycle and feedback loop. And this book had a pretty profound impact on my life when I found it. As I was telling Claire earlier, I found it through my like art mother, Amanda Fortini, who's a writer, and she wrote a great profile of Marianne Williamson and sent it to me when I was in a very, very like dark, depressive fit. And I listened to one of Marianne's talks and really loved it and got the book and was studying philosophy at the time, in particular, classical Indian philosophy, and noticed that even though the book used explicitly Judeo-Christian terminology, it was very Eastern and non-dualistic. And so just today, I want to just see if anybody has any questions about the book, because it is so weird and esoteric seeming, and then just quickly go through a little historical rundown of what it is and how it came to be and what the core ideas are, and like any advice I might be able to give if anybody's interested in reading it. I've always had copies of the book. I've given probably like 5 away, including one to my friend Joseph, who's here. And I finally got the hardcover. It's like a while ago. It's a tome. Like it's just strange. Like it's really an object. And this is the one I recommend. I put it in the email, but it has the workbook in it, which is so, the people I talk to the most who try and read this book say they have the most trouble with the workbook, which it warns you about that in the book, because it is so outside of, the first lesson is like, nothing that I see is real. And people were like, what the hell is that about? So understandably so. So does anybody have any questions for me right off the bat, or want to say anything? Okay. Well, so like I said, I found the Course in Miracles in 2017. I think it really helped me become an artist that was preoccupied with a little bit more than myself, which I'm always trying to get rid of my own perspective. And because as the Course in Miracles talks about, there's our true self, and then there's the ego self. The interesting thing about this book is, like I said, it uses Christian terminology, and in particular, like one thing I've always struggled with Christianity is like the explicitly male metaphors, like God is a man, Jesus. This book refers to God's sons all the time, so everybody is the son of God. That's hard for me. I don't know why. I don't even get upset about like obsessive pronoun use, but I have a huge conceptual problem with that. So I just tend to say children of God instead of sons of God, but it's all the same. It's fine, whatever you're comfortable with. And the Course even says like, this terminology we're using of God and Jesus and Christ, these are symbols and they point to something bigger. So we don't need to take them super literally or get sort of caught up in it, even though it is a little bit weird and hard. And this book was written or scribed by a Columbia University psychologist who was like supposedly a rampant atheist, and her name was Helen Schucman. And she was working at the Columbia, she studied psychology at NYU and was working in the Columbia Hospital in New York, and was fighting with her male cohorts all the time. And eventually something snapped, and she said in a meeting, something has to change. And then she went home that night, and apparently Jesus started dictating to her the Course in Miracles. So this is right off the bat where Christians start to hate it, because they're like, that's not how it works. Jesus doesn't talk to people like that. This is demonic. I think that's extremely reductive and not true, but that's all right. So she wrote the book, which took her 7 years. And by 1976, the height of the New Age movement, it was published. This book gets called New Age all the time. I even sometimes call it New Age, but it's not, because one of the core principles of the New Age movement, besides trying to synthesize universal religious themes, is that that we created the universe. And we create the universe with our own thoughts. And the Course in Miracles fundamentally does not believe that. It says our biggest problem is our authority problem. We think that we created ourselves, but we didn't. One of my favorite lines in the Course is that projection makes perception. And so the world of perception around us is made by our projections of fear and guilt, which is what we're trying to get out of. So that's interesting. So it's already in the context of New Age texts. Like I said, I tried to read some like criticisms about it that someone sent me. I did not find them philosophically or historically compelling enough to even address, to be honest, as someone who studied religion pretty in depth as an undergrad. So I don't think it's problematic. I think it's brilliant, and it's changed a lot of people's lives. And the Course even says, like, it's called A Course in Miracles. It's not called the Course in Miracles. Like it emphasizes over and over again, there are so many spiritual paths that we can take in order to heal our perception. And this is just one of them. So I think it's important to just say that, first of all. And so the core ideas of the Course in Miracles are, and it opens, so I think the opening is like so badass and incredible. And the New York Times says it opens cryptically. I mean, it does, but it says, the Course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way: nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. I'm obsessed with that. I love it, and it's really intense and weird, but the more you read the Course, the more the meaning sort of starts to reveal itself of what that is. And it talks about the truth is love, and that God is love, and that is what we are aiming to be and help and bring into the world. But unfortunately, because of the fall, which is, I like how it doesn't go into specifically what happened with the big fall, but it's a big theme in all of the religions. Because of the fall, we are sort of riddled with bad perception. And as a result, we are living in a giant mass hallucination of scarcity, illness, and death. And the way that that sort of perception and thinking is preserved is through fear and guilt. And that to me is very profound, because before I read this book, I had never thought about guilt as being the main preserver of sin and death and illness. And as we read the book, or if you're interested, it goes into this a lot more. These are some big ideas. Like, the book is 669 pages. So it says, this is a course in practicality. And it's like, that's not really practical to read like a 700-page book, but it's really good. I swear. So what we're trying to achieve here is freedom from guilt. And the only way we can do that is through forgiveness. And forgiveness, according to the Course in Miracles, is a putting down of the past. Like, we are letting the past go in order to free the present moment and move forward in the future. Like Eckhart Tolle and a lot of other New Age people have gotten that idea from this book specifically, that we become trapped by the past through guilt, and we trap others with us. And as a result, we become sick and miserable. A few things. One of the reasons I did the book club or wanted to talk about this is because there's a huge emphasis on this book about what sickness is and illness and death. And I think in the midst of this like massive pandemic, we really need to evaluate very seriously how we define what illness is, because there's been a whole slew of psychic illness that has been unleashed that I think needs to be addressed, in some ways even more so than the actual virus itself. And I think that the fear surrounding people becoming ill and dying has become so crippling for all of us that it's just started this feedback loop that is really hard for us to get out of, and sad and unproductive, and has negative consequences for everybody. So I think if you stick with the book, you will find some incredible insights as to, I made this painting in 2019. It was the one on my Instagram of the cross, and it says, "You are not sick and you cannot die." And I made that in 2019, and it was a line from the book that came to me while I was on a train to go paint with my friend Joseph, who's here. And I had a really bad fever. I had like this horrible bladder infection. I thought I was going to die. And I just like stuck through it and made this painting and was listening to the audiobook on the way, and I didn't die. So that was great. So we're trying to achieve freedom from guilt and understand what fear is and the ego, and how we can find freedom from it. And the hardest part about the course is that it says you will not get freedom unless you understand that every single relationship that you enter into, whether that's like a serious personal relationship or a relationship with someone you meet on the street, that's an assignment from God. And so for me, the most difficult part of this book is learning to help release guilt, feelings that we project onto other people, and find compassion and love toward those that have hurt us in the past, and move on from that. It's extremely difficult. And as Marianne says, like the book has this great quote where she says, "The ark of heaven is entered 2 by 2. Like you will not find salvation and God's love and freedom from fear without releasing your brother or sister or fellow sibling from guilt and fear." So this is not New Age at all, in my opinion, because so much of the New Age teachings and new thought is like extremely focused on the self. And this is like, you are not a self. You are your brother, sister, sibling, whatever it is. I'm talking a lot. Does anybody have any questions at all? Please speak up or anything. That's okay if you don't. Let me look at, I think I would definitely recommend, I like this quote that I read in the introduction last night. "The world we see merely reflects our own internal frame of reference, our dominant ideas, wishes, and emotions in our minds." And that, like I said before, projection makes perception. So it's not saying we created the universe. It's just saying that as we perceive the universe as human beings, what we are seeing is a direct reflection, of our inner thoughts. And it says throughout the course, would you rather be right or would you rather be at peace? So I perceive that as meaning there are things in this world that we cannot deny are horrible and happening, but there's something else going on that we don't see. And so we're trying to develop that inner sight that can help us approach it without fear or judgment. I really love that. And we forgive ourselves by forgiving each other. Yep, those are some of the core teachings of the book. And then we'll get into like special relationships, and there's so much. But the main thing is like freedom from fear, stop projecting guilt onto yourself and others, a radical reperception of what time is and illness in the body. And if I do another book club, I would love to focus the next one on sickness in particular, but and death, because that's the reason I wanted to do this book club. But it's so dense that I thought I should go over what this text is in the first place. Um, do any As far as like accessing the book, it's pretty cool. The whole text is on the website. They have a beautifully formatted, PDF of the whole book, which is mammoth. The audiobook, as I said in the email, is read by a very benevolent but weird sounding old man. I love it. Like, I listened to it so many times that it's like, oh, comforting old weird grandpa who died like 40 years ago. But I love him, but I can see, I've played it for other people and they're like, what the hell is this? Like, this is so strange. But I definitely recommend the audiobook. When I first got into this, I would listen to it while I was like cleaning in particular, working in the studio, walking. And we didn't even talk about what a miracle is. And this is the Course in Miracles. So very quickly, what we're trying to do is work miracles. And a miracle is just a shift in thinking from fear to love. Like, that is what we are trying to do. And we achieve that through prayer. And that is just like a genuine asking to God or the benevolent universe force, or whatever you want to call it, to help us. Because as it says, we have an authority problem. We think we made this ourselves. And because we did that, we think that we also need to fix ourselves, and we cannot do that. I mean, this is like a big theme in Alcoholics Anonymous too. Like, if you were actually able to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, then you wouldn't be there in the first place. So there is a bigger force, and we have to rely on it in order to start healing our perception, because we are run by the ego. And the term ego in the Course in Miracles is a lot more Freudian and the ancient Greek form, which just means it's the part of our mind that's the small separated self that sees ourself as separate from everybody else, and it thrives on fear and is controlled by fear. So all thoughts of fear and guilt and illness and death, that's the ego. And then all thoughts of love and compassion and courage, that's God. And so some people are like, how can I tell if this is God thinking or ego thinking? And it's like, just sit down and think about whether you're afraid or not, or projecting guilt. And then that's how you're going to know if it's ego or God thinking. So I recommend really spending a lot of time on the preface is fabulous. Even if you like just want to read any part of the book, just read the preface. It's a little bit dense, but it's so well written, and it explains to you exactly what the text is trying to accomplish. And the chapter on miracles is absolutely beautiful, and it's called The Meaning of Miracles. And the other principle of miracles that I find to be very beautiful and liberating is that, and it's the first principle, and it says, there is no order of difficulty in miracles. One is not harder or bigger than another. They are all the same. All expressions of love are maximal. And so one thing that the Course emphasizes is that we have so many problems in the world, and we try and order them according to their intensity, their size, how long they've been around. But the Course says there's only one problem that you have, and it's the ego, our perception of fear. And so once we can learn to heal the perception, none of the problems are going to matter anymore, because they're actually all the same. So yeah, that's something I thought I should clarify. The workbook is so weird. The first, I remember, I think my friends tried it a couple times, and like, I couldn't, it's just too weird. I mean, I've never gotten through the whole thing. Sometimes I open to random lessons, and I'm like, this is so profound and incredible. And then other ones it's interesting because the first lessons in the workbook are totally incomprehensible and bizarre. But in the introduction of the workbook, it says, you don't have to agree with this. It's crazy, but just do it. Like, just do it and dedicate this 5 minutes in the morning to like not being on Twitter or Instagram. This wasn't around when the book was written, but like you can set your day up to be peaceful and work miracles, or you can set your day up to start just this spiral of fear and upset. And as a student of this, I found that to be probably the most profound lesson. Like, I notice a huge difference if I check my phone in the first thing in the morning. Like, that is a recipe for absolute disaster and fear and anger, and like, especially when coffee is involved, like, it's over. Your day's done. Especially now too, like, when I was at the height of being a good student of this, I couldn't have cared less about the news. And this was like when Trump was around and he was awful. And I did great. And I thought I was a very useful citizen and was spreading love all over the place. And then COVID happened, and then we all got glued to the news because none of us had any idea what was going on. And then it turns out like the news is still making a lot of money off of COVID and scaring the shit out of people all the time and making us fearful and suspicious of each other. And yeah, that has to stop. And so I think this is a really good way to help ourselves.
Birdie?
Anyway, Joseph?
Oh, there are 365 lessons in the workbook, right? Like
Yes.
you're supposed to do
Yes.
one every day, and
You
that's how it's kind of structured.
You can do one every day. The introduction of the workbook says the only real rule, like, you can switch to different lessons. You can spend like 4 days on a lesson. You don't have to do them in order. The one thing it just asks you to do is don't do more than one at the same day because you'll get overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'll just read you the first lesson here, which is just the craziest. Lesson one, nothing I see in this room or on this street, from this window, in this place, etc., means anything. Now look slowly around you and practice applying this idea very specifically to whatever you see, such as, this table does not mean anything. This chair does not mean anything. This hand does not mean anything. This foot does not mean anything. This pen does not mean anything. So that to me really threw me off. But then as you go through the lessons, you'll figure out why they're telling you to say that. And it actually makes perfect sense. So I think the workbook is the most useful because if you do it in the morning, it's like you're just taking like 5 to 10 minutes in the morning to, like, it sounds so canned, but to like set your intention for how you want your perception to be for the rest of the day. So I recommend that. The whole workbook's online too. They have it organized beautifully if you don't want to get the book. I love the book. Like, I think it's the paper, it's like weird, almost like Bible paper. I hate to say it. It's a really cool book, and it's far out, and it's still made by the same people. I got a hardcover one finally because I've given away like seriously 7 copies of the soft cover one to people. So there's the workbook, which is great. And like I said, I definitely recommend the audiobooks so you don't get so overwhelmed. But the more I look at the book, the more it kind of like punches me in the face, because there's so many incredible books. Like, even if you're an artist or if you're a writer or whatever you think your life's purpose is, if you just put the time into this, or just like any time, you will find so many jewels of wisdom in this book. And like it says, it's like, it's not a cult. It says over and over again, if you meet someone who's telling you that this book is the only truth, then you need to run away. But the woman who scribed it from Jesus, she was not stupid. Like, she had a very, very astute understanding of psychological illness and how the mind works. And so, as Marianne Williamson called this book, she says it's not, actually, I think it says it in the book itself, this is not a religious text. This is like a psychotherapeutic book. This is like trying to help us heal our minds. So that is what I have written or had to say about the Course in Miracles so far. And like I said, the thing that really spurned this is like we have to start changing our perception of ourselves and each other in the world, or we're going to wipe ourselves out really, really fast. Especially after the last 18 months. Like this has been the most like unprecedented nightmare that anybody could possibly imagine, and nobody is safe from it. But as we'll learn, it's all a mass hallucination. So does anybody have any questions about the book or where to start? How can I help? Anything? Does the book seem compelling? Do you seem more interested in it now? Okay, that's good. That's really good.
How much, Birdie, how much do you suggest to read at a time?
I definitely recommend don't read more than you want to. Like the last thing you want, so the last thing you want to do is like be like, I need to read like 25 pages of this, and then you're like, I couldn't make it past 5. Guilt. I don't want to do this anymore. Like that's the last thing that you want to do. I say read as much as you want. I think it starts getting really, really good. The thing I think we should talk about in the future, if everybody's interested, is the principle of atonement, which is how it's like the way of addressing our past mistakes and conduct toward other human beings so that we can move forward for it. Because we can't just, it says we're not trying to get rid of pain by minimizing it or pretending that it's not there. We have to atone with it in a way without guilt. So I think the first part of the book is actually the most challenging because it talks about the atonement principle and it goes really hard on the Christian analogy about the fall. But then it kind of breaks through and gets to this amazing part about the crucifixion. And so which is why I put the cross in the painting and lessons from the crucifixion. So I think if you can make it that far, which is, I wrote it down last night. Okay, yeah, I think the first 88 pages are probably the most difficult of the book, which is the first 4 chapters, I believe. And then it gets to the lessons of love, and it's the message of the crucifixion, which to me is one of the most beautiful pieces of theology I've ever read. And the cool thing about this book is a lot of theologists have looked kind of hard at it and tried to understand like what it aligns with most. And the ones who do give it due diligence think that this is actually closest not to like demonic new age crap, but Gnosticism, which is, I think, is amazing and really cool, and Neoplatonism, which always a fan of that. But so I recommend not reading more than you want, but once you get past those first 88 pages and trying to comprehend what this like atonement stuff is, it starts to get, I mean, the first time I read this, like one of the most beautiful messages of this course is that it's like, you're not alone. Like you're not alone and you're not abandoned. And that to me was, there's a quote, I was painting and I was listening to the book and I just started sobbing because it said, yeah, what is that? You're not fatherless. Like you are not without support in the universe. Like there's so much love for you. And that's so important for us. Like the universe is not against you. Like there's love. And I think that's really profound. And only when we try and like get it from other places do we start to get miserable. Okay, so sorry, that was a really long-winded way of asking. I think the first 88 pages are a slog and then it gets easier. Starts to get real good. Anything else?
I have only started with the preface, but I was curious about, like, you're describing it as scribed by one woman, but what
Mhm.
do you, it seems like she also felt the need to say, also this guy, my colleague,
Yes.
like appeals to Western reason and institutions that'll be like, I know that I might just be a crazy woman, but also I think the preface said something like, um, in her first person account, he really actually wrote it. We wrote it together, and that's where the power comes from. And on the one hand, I resisted that because I was like, no, you're powerful. Stand in your
Yes.
power, girl. But then I was like, the idea, I mean, like as someone who writes books and I enjoy the perception of aloneness that I have with them, but I do know that I don't write them by myself. And I like that like idea that the power of it came from collaboration, or the like just not having names on the front of the book is very subversive
Yes.
for the object of a book, right? Anyway, I just wanted to hear what you thought about that, like co-authorship and selflessness. Like she's kind of wanting to like dissolve and be like, this just came through me, maybe.
Yes. That's a very profound observation, because when I started reading this book, it's like what you said, her name doesn't appear anywhere on the front. Everything I read about her, including chunks of her autobiography, just keep emphasizing over and over again. She's like, this isn't me. I didn't do it. I was just the conduit for this. And I was like, exactly what you said. I'm like, no, you're a genius. And you were able to synthesize your knowledge of psychology with theology and create this thing. But, and then the thing with like, oh, this is because of my advisor, Bill Thetford, the man who she collaborated with on. And then the more I read it, it's like what you said, it starts to become a little bit more subversive and indicative of what the text is actually trying to teach you, where it's like your salvation and it talks about the difference between creation and making things. And as an artist, it's like, I want to create things. I don't want to just make things out of need or lack. It's about creating something bigger. Um, but the course says you can't do that without your brother. Like you're not alone. Like this isn't something that comes out of one vision. Like we're all connected to each other. And I think William Thetford was the advisor she was fighting with all the time. And so I think it became like very powerful for her to emphasize his role in the scribing of the book, because they went from fighting colleagues in a time where not a lot of women were like holding these big positions in like the Columbia Hospital of like psychology and psychiatry, to close collaborators and friends. So yeah, I think I don't know if that helps at all, but I think your observation is very profound and true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, when I read that this started at a faculty meeting, I was like, no, nothing like life changing can ever happen to begin at a faculty meeting. But I'm starting to I'm getting convinced. I mean, I've just been feeling like, um, you go into the grocery store and you feel other people's feelings and you absorb their fear. And that has been a lived experience for me. And now I'm kind of trying to seek out like who all else has noticed this phenomenon of our interconnectedness, whether we acknowledge it or not, and how can I like get some guidance in understanding this new fact of existence, that we're not these like isolated little
Yes.
capsules, that we're really porous.
Yes. I love that. And there's one thing, like I said, the most challenging part of the course is that it just says over and over again, like, if you think that your brother is trying to take your experience of God away from you, you are doing things really wrong, because the whole point is like what you said, we are not these atomized little selves. Like that perception is like a cancerous little cell that just goes off and like infects everything, and then it self-destructs. And that's why I say this is like very Eastern, because it's non-dualistic. It's very much about interconnectedness and learning to heal our perception of others, because it is so hard to see God and love in other people, especially when they're accusatory, when they're projecting fear onto you. Especially now when everything is like so culturally divided and intense. It's like impossible to like go to the grocery store, and it's like some people are wearing masks and then other people are not, and like, you know, there's just like judgment being projected at everybody. So this, it's, the courses work, but it really, I remember like getting ice cream after I started reading this book like 3 years ago, and I was with my really smart friend Ellie, who's very like snarky and like Jewish dry wit, likes to pick at people in a really funny, productive way. And she was like saying things about these like kind of blonde, like I hate to say it, like stupid looking girls in the ice cream store. And I just remember for the first time in my whole life being like, I don't need to judge these people today. It's all right. It's okay. Everything's fine. And I've only had a few moments of that, but it is profound when you experience like how much better you feel when you can just project love onto people instead of hatred, or not even hatred, but guilt. So yeah, and realize like we're all the same. And I think, yeah, and I like what you said, because for me as an artist, it's like I mean, all art is self-portraiture. I like that quote, but I want to get as far the hell away from myself as I possibly can in my art. I feel like a raggedy little worm, but we're not. So I really hope that this book can bring some like peace to people's lives. And I think if we get a little bit into the teachings of illness and death, it can really help. So what else? Any other questions about the book or getting started or getting a book? Cool.
Yeah. Hey.
Hi, Jenny.
Hey. I know it talks about like forgiveness, which is atonement, right?
The atonement helps us lead to forgiveness. Yep.
Okay. So I haven't read, I used to use the book as like an oracle kind of, and would just
Okay.
like open it. I think like maybe 2016 I read like the first couple chapters.
Okay.
But would you say for like to forgive someone like is just a perspective shift, or do you have to like physically be like, I forgive you, I'm sorry, or can you just change it in your mind?
That's a really good question, and I think the most important part is the shift in perception. I don't want to get into the densities of how like hard this kind of is at first, but the whole point of we forgive through miracles. Like that is how it happens. Like we have to have that shift in perception. And so that's what they say, that miracles are thoughts, and that you can change behavior, but until you change the thoughts, it doesn't matter. So I think if you really want to, like, for example, a lot of my work here on this planet is like forgiving my parents for like inexcusable neglect and horrible. I mean, like we all have our stuff. Like it doesn't matter what it is. We all have our own stuff. So it's like I don't feel like I need to go out of my way to like contact my parents and like talk about it. And the only thing is like learning very earnestly and like actually, this is where the prayer part, and like they say this in AA, like you can get down on your knees and like pray to the ceiling, like you can meditate, you can do whatever you need, but like you have to invite something bigger than yourself in to help the forgiveness, because like it's almost impossible to do it by ourselves most of the time. So I think this book is really helpful because it helps us foster the kinds of thoughts that bring in forgiveness, and that they say that relationships are not the coming together of bodies at all. Like you can have people in the same room making symbolic gestures of forgiveness, but none of that matters because you could be on opposite sides of the planet and really be feeling the forgiveness and sending that out, and that is what matters. If that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, and it's so simple, but it's really hard. It's like we're just letting go of the past, and we're forgiving guilt in ourselves and others. So, yeah, that's a great question. That's a really, really good one. Anything else from anyone? We good? I have a question. So in the future, I'm trying to think if meeting, like doing this maybe like every 2 weeks is a good idea. Like I think every week is just like insane and no one could ever do anything that's stupid, but it's not stupid. So I'm thinking maybe in 2 weeks, could probably get together again, and if you wanted, and maybe just talk about the principle of atonement a little bit and the crucifixion, which is like the best banger in the whole book, in my opinion. It's so good. And I think Sunday, is Sunday a good day, or does this work? Great. And if anybody, like I said, I think that if you have any questions at all, you should always just like email me or like slide into my DMs, as they say, or like anything you need. Like I can I was a total nerd and I'm getting back into it too. So like it's a good way to learn together and explore some like pretty incredible topics. And like I said, this book has brought me like, I don't want to like put the causal onus on like a book, but these teachings really have like changed my life and made I like can't even imagine how bad my art would be if I hadn't found it. That's not, I mean, but yeah, I think it's pretty phenomenal, and I hope that it inspires people. I mean, it like cracked me open like an egg when I started reading it. It really did. It really shook me like in a way that no other like drug I've done or like stupid activity or soul searching ever has. Like it's very methodical and it's very psychologically astute. Like the woman who scribed this was not stupid at all. So yeah, Jenny.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I feel like in the book, like every single word is there for a reason. And it like like the act of reading it like unwinds your ego, like word by word. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's beautiful, because I have also noticed that like it's like, did you really have to make something this long? Like if it's so simple, why is it 700 pages? But it's true, the more there's not a single unnecessary or frivolous word in the book, and it really does unravel the ego. Like you'll see if you stick to it, or if you just, like I said, if you just listen to the audiobook while you're like cleaning your kitchen or the toilet or something, and you just stick with it or go on walks, like it's deeply profound. So yeah, thanks, Jenny. That's brilliant. Yeah, and then we'll get into like the really dense stuff, like the difference between perception and knowledge, which like we don't even need to go there yet. It's a lot. But yeah, I hope this can help us like start to see through this like massive, horrible hallucination of illness and death that so many of us have been unwillingly stuck in. And I really appreciate everybody taking the time. I was really happy. I was like just 5 people, and that was exactly what I got. So I'm really grateful. Thank you for like, and Zoom is awful. It's actually not that bad. I should stop complaining, but yeah, I really hope I can help and be of service, and I hope this book can bring you like miracles. But and what a like canned word too. I'm like, miracles, are you serious? But they're real. they are real. And if you ask for them, you will get them. It's profound. It is deeply profound. And it says, the last thing I'll say is that it says over and over again, all you need is just a kernel of willingness, like very serious willingness, and it will come to you. Yeah, so I'll like tentatively plan on maybe meeting again in 2 weeks and talking about like atonement and crucifixion, which is, like I said, it's the best part of the whole book. Sarah, hi.
Hi, I'm sorry for my awkward English because I'm from France. I live in Paris, and Zoom is perfect for me. So will it happen at the same time, at the same hour every at every lecture?
Sunday? Okay.
Yes, because it's 7 p.m. in Paris, so it's good for me. But if I just wanted to know if it will happen at the same hour every time.
Hi, welcome from Paris. That's so cool. Paris is my favorite place on the planet. I plan to have it at the same time because it's it starts at 11 a.m. where I am in Montana. It's at 1 p.m. in New York, where a lot of my friends are who said they were going to come and they didn't, but that's okay. They can come next time if they want. And then guilt. No, I'm just kidding. And then I think it's like 10 a.m. in California. So unless everybody emails me and says this is the worst time, we'll keep doing this time. There's a woman from Germany who wants to make it to the next one, and I think it's 8 o'clock where she is right now. So yeah, thanks that's so cool. You're in France. That's amazing. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think they have it in French. I think there's a French version. I'll look.
To give us at all like assignment guidelines, that this is a very teacherly question, like this page, or shall we just write it as
yeah. What I'll do like today or tomorrow is I'll find like a chunk, because I know there's like it's the cool thing about this book is that it's very well organized. Like even the chapters are broken up into these very methodical, easy to read small chunks. And so what I'll do like today and tomorrow is like find the chunk that I found the most resonating and clear. And then we can just focus on that. And then I think for the next meeting, if people are interested, we can kind of like talk about how the workbook is going, if you're interested. And we can just focus on like the first, like, let's say like 12 lessons, not even 14. So you can give or take a day. And like I said, there's no guilt. So you don't even have to read it. And I'll just talk about, just because I've read this so much, I'll just introduce like what the idea is or something. But it's very good. I should make it more like a course. I'm the teacher. Okay. Anything else? Hi, Emily.
Hi.
What's up?
I just wanted to thank you for doing this. This is so wonderful. Like I kind of, as you were talking about it, I felt like I was like gonna cry just because it's just like so deeply profound, and being able to like experience that with other people is so beautiful. Yeah, and I love your work. I think it's wonderful. Yeah, that's basically all I wanted to say, is be like a bit cheesy, but yeah, I'm very excited.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot. That really, really means everything to me. Because like I said, it's not about the individual, it's about all of us. So the fact that 5 of you found this important enough, including my best friend on the planet, Joseph Vaughn, really means a lot. He's also an incredible artist, but thank you everyone. I look forward to doing this again more, and hopefully in like 2 meetings we'll get to like the really great shit, which is like illness and death, because that's what we're all faced with right now. But the crucifixion, like I said, that's going to be a blast, because we were all raised in Western society with a very insane interpretation of the crucifixion, especially those poor Catholics a lot of the time. So oh, the Protestants are even worse than the Catholics, though. They're like obsessed with it. But we'll get to that later. If there's anything else, please send me an email. You can find me on Instagram. I'm like hopelessly addicted to it. Trying to be better at not being on all the time. Yeah, my only advice is like just take some time in the morning and like, I hate to sound new age, but like set your intention, because it's very profound and it will change your life. And yeah, if there's not anything else, we're gonna get the heck out of here. And thank you so very much, and we'll see you soon. And have a great Sunday. Bye. Thank you so much. Au revoir, Sarah.